Hi, I'm Doug Barbin, President and National Managing Principal at Schellman. Today I'm here with Anil Marcos from Abacode, one of our strategic partners, and we're going to talk about trust is broken.
Hey, Doug.
Pleasure, sir.
Nice to see you.
Absolutely, you as well. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Anil Marcos, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Abacode. Been here since about February of this year. We are a cybersecurity managed services company based here in Tampa, really focused on the unification of cybersecurity and compliance. One of the things that we realized a number of years ago was that for a lot of small to mid-sized businesses that are dealing with regulated data, they need help with cybersecurity and things like 24/7 monitoring, vulnerability management, and so forth. But they also have a regulatory obligation to kind of get through audits and explain to regulators how these controls work. And so, the problem that we solve is delivering all of that in a packaged managed service, right? And so we do the compliance as well as the security.
Great. So you've been on the other side of our work in the world we live in from an audit perspective. So you came to me with an idea. You said, let's do some thought leadership around trust is broken. What did you mean by that? What were you thinking?
It's interesting. I prior to coming to Abacode, I was the head of security compliance globally for Amazon and AWS specifically. And one of the things that I realized when I was there was, the innovation cycle right now in IT, when you think about AI and things like DevOps and hyper kind of speed applications that are getting built out. The control environment is constantly in motion, right? And so when you look at that control environment constantly in motion, and you go, well, how are we enabling trust for our customers to come and bring their sensitive data onto these platforms?
That's right.
Today, the mechanism is highly reliant on these point-in-time assessments that are, audits that an auditor or somebody that's really brokering that trust does for you. But the problem is the environment isn't constantly in motion, so it really is not fit for purpose, right? And so this was a big problem for us at Amazon, where we had customers constantly asking us for new audit reports and so forth. And so for me, growing up in security operations, where you saw the SOC constantly, doing instrumentation, it was the aha moment for me to go, compliance really has a shift change that's occurring right now, where we have to go really into continuous monitoring.
You go in and it's point in time, or even the period of review, audits, right? Your type 2, so to speak, are challenging because you're still looking at historical data and you're still looking at samples. In many cases, you can't get a bigger set of data sometimes to do that level of level of risk analysis, right?
So, the paper that we wrote, I think a great example in it is comparison from Zagat to Yelp, right?
That's right.
When you looked at restaurants back in the day, you had somebody go in, sit there, eat, right? And I think you had some great points on, even in that analogy of how an auditor could think about instrumentation, right?
Sure. Well, yeah, because we talked about that example, right? The restaurant auditor coming in, sitting down, having a meal, and then writing a report that would basically judge the restaurant for the rest of the year, right? Type of thing. And yeah, because it's to me, the comparison in today's age, it's not even taking it to the Yelp level, right? That adds customers. That's important. And that's one of the things that we don't see enough of. We feel in our line of work is that so many people take compliance reports and they're like, oh, did you do it or not? No. You should actually read the report, understand the risks, understand what's going on, challenge the company that you're working with to write a better report or to be more in depth. But I think, so the customer side on the Yelp side is an interesting analogy, but it also begs the question, and I think where you're getting into, and some of the cool things we've seen from a technology perspective is instrumentation. It's one thing to know whether or not the meal was good. It's another thing to know how many minutes did it take from the time you ordered that your food was delivered. What was the temperature of that steak when it hit when it hit the plate and when it hit your table? Like, we're in security, we're starting to be able to measure all of those point things with technology, and to be able to triangulate on a picture of security and compliance that is much more data oriented. But you got to be able to do it in real time. You can't just do it once. You can have one good meal on one night and have a not so great meal another night, right? So.
And what you want to know is that the controls are really ensuring that process is consistent and good all the time.
That's right, consistent. You want 95% of the time to get a good meal, and if there's a 5% of the time, you want to know that the company has the ability to adjust and fix itself, and that's what a security management system sets the bar for that, right? And then technology and data become the feeding mechanisms to know when you're doing good, when you're not, when you can correct, and so forth.
That's right. And one of the areas where we're seeing this really manifesting itself is really around third-party risk.
Yep.
For example, so if you look at whether it's FedRAMP, CMMC, you look at any of the SOC 2 reports that are out there, PC, everyone's asking you to look at your third-party ecosystem where you have regulated data moving to a third party. So if you're sending data to a payroll processor, an HR function, so forth, you have to you're still responsible for the security of that data. And so what's interesting about it is as we kind of looked at that particular area, it's, you have to start somewhere around this continuous compliance. You can't possibly automate all of the controls in a framework.
That's right.
So if you took the 3 or 4 controls that are there around third-party risk, and you say, well, how can we really instrument the third-party ecosystem in a more consistent way? And that's kind of one of the areas where we started tackling really fast. To say, if you have large ecosystem of third parties, that list is constantly in evolution, right? It's not a static list of who your vendors are. How can you grab the threat intelligence related to that? How can you understand what's going on? How can you automate a risk-based approach to sending out the questionnaires?
That's right.
How can you bring that information back and then really understand what is that overall kind of risk posture look like around your third parties?
The questionnaire is arguably even worse than an audit in terms of it being point in time, right? But if you can get real-time telemetry data from those organizations. I mean, I feel like the cloud providers, you're at AWS, right? The cloud providers do a good job of providing real-time information around uptime.
That's right.
This particular region has been up, green, all day long, last incident 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, type of thing, right? So having that type of telemetry data about security could be even more compelling.
Yes, that's right. And ultimately, we want to solve the problem, right? This is, I think where the market has shifted to is you're seeing some, extremely low-end providers around SOC reports right now where, it's almost like getting a bachelor's degree from some Caribbean island somewhere where you just send it in and all comes as certification.
Right.
The trust aspect of this entire mechanism has started to erode because, we're really not thinking about the problem and why are we doing this. And we're just kind of going through the mechanical exercise for no reason.
I mean, as an auditor, it's easy to hear that feedback and say, oh, well, you're getting all this data. Are you putting me out of a job? Well, no, of course not. There's automation. There's reducing the mundane things that I had to do to produce the assessment report in the first. But I've got so much more data. I can take a much better risk-based view. I'm not worried about my sample of 25 and extrapolating that. I'm able to see process and picture and big picture and have that comfort and trust, like you said, that this is happening.
So Doug, I don't know if you want to talk about what our plans are here. It's a 4-part series.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. We've covered a bit, but it's a 4-part series. We talk first. We've introduced this topic. Trust is broken. And then we made some of the same analogies that we talked about with the restaurant. I think that'll help the reader understand where we're trying to go with this, what we're trying to solve for, right? And then from there, I'm excited about diving into practical solutions, sharing with our readers, what can the company be doing to better enhance their compliance and their trustworthiness, and what can the auditors be doing too? We as an industry have to adapt. It's not even just about adapting to a technology. We have to take a more flexible approach and understand the technology that identifies, yes or no attribute questions, is going to have a lot more data and it's going to vary, over time. And we need to be able to make risk-based analysis based on. So I'm excited about what we're putting together here.
Likewise, and I think we're seeing a lot of market interest in the topic. I know from my time at AWS, this was a big issue over there as well. So really excited to be working with Schellman on this.
Awesome.
And so
likewise,
lots of time.
Pleasure, sir.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks.